Hey, it's Alexi, and in this video we'll be taking a look at using the Mercury X as a delay pedal. Now the Mercury X has a very full-featured delay section. They call it pre-delay, but basically it has probably more features than most standalone delay pedals have. Okay, we'll be starting with a blank preset here. So I will start my sequence. As you notice, we're getting some reverb here. Now, to bring out the pre-delay, we go into the reverb section here. Scroll back to our PDLY blend, which is pre-delay blend. So we'll bring that up to 100%. Now we are bypassing the reverb entirely. Our pre-delay is running in parallel through the reverb, and none of it is going into the reverb. So we are getting only delay. And we can change the delay time here on the pre-delay knob. Or we can go into our pre-delay section and set this to listen to MIDI clock. So we'll set it to force listen. Now I have it synced to MIDI clock. For the structure setting here, we have standard, which is a normal forward delay, and we have reverse, which of course a backwards delay. We'll be sticking with the standard here. Our type setting has our digital, which is basically a very clean digital delay. We get the bucket brigade delay, which of course a darker, like an old school analog delay, and magnetic, which is magnetic tape delay type here. We'll stick with digital for now. Okay, we'll move on to the time setting here. Now this is clocked to or synced to MIDI clock right now, so we are seeing our tempo here. I have it set to show milliseconds. You can set it to BPM if you'd like. We can still, even though it is clocked, we can tweak our delay time here, but it will always snap back to the clocked tempo here. But you can do some interesting time effects here, especially with feedback. Okay, then we'll move on to the division settings. Now this delay has two delay lines, so left and right, and we get a division setting for each delay line separately. So by default, when it's set to off, you have a quarter note division. So when we set our left division to something else, we get a different delay time. Let's set that dotted eighth, go into the right division and change this one. Set to eighth. So you can get some interesting rhythmic effects here. And the next setting is our feedback setting. Of course, increases the amount of signal that is fed back into the input of the delay. And bringing this up gives us more repeats. And with digital type, we can bring it up like this and just keep building up. Okay, next we'll take a look at the crossfeed setting here. Now basically this determines how much of the delay lines are fed back to each other. So right now they are completely separate. I'll bring this up. You'll notice it changes the rhythmic pattern there. Now next we have an interesting setting here. This half speed. Basically this will cut your sample rate in half. So we'll turn this on. You'll notice it goes down an octave, and we get twice the delay time. So if you wanted around 5 seconds of delay time for each delay line, you will turn this on and you will get a lower sample rate but more delay time. And when we bring this back up, you'll notice this really nice sounding octave up jump. So really nice effect. Okay, our next setting is mod, which is modulation. Now it's also on the front panel here, so you can either use this one here or use the dedicated knob here to adjust your modulation. Now this is the modulation in the pre-delay. Now the modulation is different for each delay type. So for the digital one, it's like a basic LFO modulating your delay lines here. So you get a little bit of modulation. And we'll go into the other delay types later. Okay, and the next setting is damping. Now this is another setting that is different for each delay type, and we will go into the differences later. Now for the digital type, this is basically a low pass filter. So you bring this up, you get darker repeats. Which is probably something you would often want. Generally don't probably want an entirely faithful recreation of your signal in a delay. You want to bring this up a little bit of modulation, and you have a much more interesting delay. Okay, now the next setting is dry blend. So this basically just blends in a bit of parallel dry signal with your pre-delay. Now this is useful when you want to use the pre-delay as a proper delay, and you also use reverb at the same time. We'll get into that later. And then we get back to our MIDI clock setting here. Now we will change our type to bucket brigade and scroll back to our modulation and damping. Now for the modulation in the bucket brigade type, bring up the level a bit. It's a slightly different type of modulation here. Crank that. It's a slightly more seasick type of modulation, more prominent. Sounds pretty nice. Bring that down and go into the damping. Now for the bucket brigade type, damping will decrease the high end. It changes the filtering in the delay line so that it reduces the clock noise from the bucket brigade emulation. So you get a darker repeat, but it's also a little cleaner. I'm going to bring it back down. You notice a little bit more grit in the repeats. So bring that up a bit and bring the mod up. You get a more interesting repeat here. Okay, then we'll move on to the magnetic type here and go to our modulation and damping. Now the magnetic type is a pretty faithful recreation of your signal at default settings, modulation 0 and damping 0. When we bring up the damping or the modulation, we are getting a wow and flutter type of modulation here, which just means basically combined higher frequency and lower frequency modulation. So you get a slow modulation combined with a fast modulation, which makes this sort of a pretty organic sounding modulation here. And the damping basically brings in some tape and tape machine aging artifacts. So you get a sort of a grittier sound, a little bit more prominent mid-range maybe, and it sort of decays differently. And combine these settings here, modulation and damping, for a very nice sounding tape delay. Okay, next we'll get into how to combine the delay with the reverb. So remember we had our pre-delay setting here. We'll just bring this down to around 50%. So now we have delay and reverb. But you might notice that our dry signal is not running into the reverb, so it's completely dry. We're only getting reverb on our delay. So for this one, we want to go back to our pre-delay settings and bring up the dry blend a little bit. And a little bit goes a long way with this. So now we are getting reverb on our dry signal as well as our delayed signal. Okay, so now that we have the basics of using the pre-delay as a dedicated delay and running that as well as our dry signal into the reverb, we can go and look at some of the other processing elements in the Mercury X that you can use with the delay. Now the Mercury X has these processing elements here. So you have dynamics, you have preamp, filter, pitch and modulation effects here, which can be placed in different places in the signal chain. So basically for the delay you have a spot before the delay and you have another one in the feedback loop. So you can make some really interesting effects here. Okay, we'll start with the dynamics here. We have types here. I will go into location, set this to pre-delay, and freeze is our basic or our default type here. It is set by default to the hold modifier foot switch or button here. So you get this interesting freezing effect. We can also set this to feedback loop. For a different type of effect. And now we'll take a look at the other types in the dynamics setting, or dynamics category here. I'll set it to pre so we don't get any runaway feedback there. We have compressor. I'm gonna set this to, right now it's before the delay. I'll bring down the threshold, bring up the gain for a very compressed sound, running into the reverb. Very interesting sound there. And bring down the gain quite a lot and set this to feedback loop. So now we get this sort of effect that is slowly starting to self-oscillate there. Bring that down. You have to be careful with these. So think about what you're doing before you do it. We also get swell type that doesn't do that much, maybe kind of chops out the attack. We get a diffusion type. That makes for a more diffuse signal there before the delay and in the feedback loop. So keeps the feedback loop, it keeps diffusing the signal as it's being fed back into the delay. Of course, the limiter is quite similar to a compressor. I won't go into that. So that's our dynamic section. Our next section is the preamp section here. We'll turn this on and we have a tube type here. This will basically emulate different types of preamps and the sort of distortion you get from driving them harder. We have our gain setting. I will bring the level down already and bring up the gain. Get a bit more distortion or saturation before the delay. Bring down the level quite a bit before we put this into feedback loop. So notice quite an interesting oscillation effect there. So these preamp types will get out of hand quite quickly. So anything that adds gain will basically feedback very heavily if it's in the feedback loop. Put that to pre again, and we'll go for a different type of this transistor. Notice a very mid-focused sound here. And we'll bring down the level again. Bring up the gain. This is before the delay. And put it in the feedback loop. So right now we're getting this sort of interesting feedback effect. It just keeps getting thinner and thinner. And go back to presetting, and we still have an op amp type here, which again sounds slightly different. Bring down the level, bring up the gain. Set it to feedback loop. It doesn't quite get as out of hand as the transistor type. Gives it a nice saturation. And that's our preamp section. Okay, our next category is the filter category here. We'll set this to our ladder filter. So basically a Moog synthesizer filter here. And we'll put this in the pre location before our delay. We get control over our frequency and resonance as well. I'll bring the resonance down a little bit. Set this to our feedback loop here. Bring up the resonance carefully. This is another setting that can cause quite a bit of feedback. We can change our topology from low pass to band pass for different type of filtering, or a high pass. Stick with low pass for now. Also have spread control here. So we get sort of a stereo spread effect here. And I'll set this to pre, and we have different types here. We have state variable filter. I won't be going into these too deeply. And then we have a parametric filter type as well. Okay, our next category is pitch. Now these are different types of pitch shifting effects. So we have the polychroma, which is basically like a high quality chromatic polyphonic pitch shifter. We'll set this to pre, so it's before our delay. And the pitch is set to minus an octave by default. Bring this up an octave. It's easier to demonstrate. Now it's mixed at 50%. We can bring it to 100% or anything in between, of course. Give it a 50%, and when it's set to pre, we only get an octave jump here. When it's set to feedback loop, you get this cascading pitch effect here. And if we set this to something other than an octave, some weird interval here, get these weird pitch effects here. It's a very powerful effect, especially in the feedback loop. And we also have microshift type, which is more of a subtle detuning effect. And then we get a lo-fi, which is two pitch shifters, which are more old school, sort of less or a lower quality pitch shifting. But you get two of these for stereo. So you notice it's a little bit crunchier, sounds more like something you'd have a couple of decades ago. It makes for a really cool effect. And that's our pitch section. Okay, our final category here is modulate. So modulation effects. We get chorus, of course, and I'll set this to pre. Make sure our modulation in the delay is off. Now this will, of course, add modulation before our delay lines. Can set our depth higher and our speed higher, of course. And of course you can set this to the feedback loop as well. Bring the depth down, we're getting something weird going on there. Like some kind of feedback. Some of these effects might react or interact with the feedback loop in unexpected ways. I don't always know what is going on. But next we have a vibrato type. Set this to up to 10 Hertz here. There are note division settings, we're not going to go into those now. Make a deeper vibrato. Let's make a very deep vibrato with slow speed. And of course, we'll turn down the depth here and set this to our feedback loop. So it will add vibrato to each or to the repeats each time they go through the feedback loop. And then we get to the interesting stuff. It's the vowel mode, so like the formant filter. change your vowels here. Increase the resonance. And you have manual control as well for this one. Bring down the resonance just in case and set this to feedback loop. So you get like formant filtering on your formant filtering. That's an interesting effect there. And of course we have tremolo. And you get a spread control, so different times on the left and right. And we get the voice optical tremolo or harmonic tremolo. Harmonic tremolo is a little bit more subtle. And of course you can set this into the feedback loop as well. And our feedback will disappear quite quickly here. Try the optical voice. Get this weird choppy effect there. It's pretty nice. Okay. And then we have hazy. Now this is the most interesting, in my opinion, of these modulation settings. This basically gives you a lot of lo-fi options here. Decimate is like bit crushing and sample rate reduction maybe. Bring that up. Lower is more decimated. Very lo-fi digital. Bring it up to 100%, nothing is happening there. And then we have warble. Adds a bit of warble, as it says on the tin there. And age gives you some kind of aging artifacts. And the lows are cut by default, as are the highs. So bring these up. We have our normal signal here. Bring up the age. Get a bit of a warble there as well. And the warble. Now when you have especially when you have the highs, all the highs coming through, they are fed into the decimate algorithm. Now you get a lot more of this sort of aliasing artifact here, which sounds really good in my opinion. I like that. Reminds me of when I was young and was watching or listening to music on the internet or watching videos way back. Set that into the feedback loop. Add a bit of warble and age for a super crunchy delay. Okay, now that's it for this video on using the pre-delay in the Mercury X as a dedicated delay. Now it's, as you can see, it's a very full-featured delay, has a whole lot of options for shaping your delay. The actual delay section has so many options here, a lot more than a lot of dedicated delay pedals have, and it sounds pretty good. It's not the best sounding delay, in my opinion, that I have, but it does sound very good, and you get a lot of control, and it's all in this little box here. So basically the Mercury X is really a multi-effect pedal with some caveats in how it can be used. Okay, so if you're still watching my video on this brilliant pedal, thank you for sticking around, and if you found this useful, I hope you'll like and or subscribe, and I will see you again soon.